Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting of the East Lansing City Council for 7 p.m. Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. At the opening of the meeting, could we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Altman.
Here.
Councilmember Meadows.
Here.
Councilmember Watson. Mayor Pro Tem Singh.
Here.
Mayor Brookover.
Here. Do we have a motion regarding the agenda?
I will move approval with two amendments. The amendments are to add two appointments to the consent agenda. One is the appointment of Logan Byrne to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a full term ending December 31st, 2026. And the second is appointment of Alexis Murray to the Historic District Commission for a full term ending December 31st, 2026.
And can we also add to that motion an excuse for Ms. Watson for this meeting, please?
Yes, and I'll add recommendation to excuse Ms. Watson's absence from the meeting on grounds of professional travel.
Okay, moved by Altman, seconded by Meadows. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. We have, as item 1.3, approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of April 9th, 2024. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Move to approve by Altman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Meadows. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Communications from audience, written communications received by council are posted on the online agenda packet. Do we have communications from the audience? I have a few sheets here. Mr. Ramirez Roberts.
So I had talked about this before at a previous, when it was going through before, but just I do want to reiterate that although I'm sure it meets all the zoning requirements and all of those things, that considering drive-throughs really in the modern day and age when we're focusing so much on walkability without any real, just really single-use kind of buildings without any living space above. And then also, I didn't know where best to address this, but then also combining that with the 100 East Saginaw, the gas station. I know it had made a request to essentially tear down the building and construct a new one. And ever since then, it seems the building has fallen into a slight degree of disrepair, with the sides falling off mysteriously. And then also apparently the sign that holds the gas prices being broken as well, with no efforts to fix it. And it seems like they've also stopped washing the outside of the building, kind of, once again, a comical state of disrepair. So it's my understanding that they've also put in a request to essentially look at that again, and I would like to consider, as we look through that request, kind of the state of the building right now, and then also whether or not any of our code enforcement officers can maybe do anything, whether or not they are breaking any ordinances by failing to maintain the facade of the building. Thank you.
Okay. Attorney O'Regan.
Hello. I've communicated with you via letter, which I hope you received in your packet, about the scourge of very noisy cars, especially at night, and how also they're dangerous because they speed up in order to generate this noise. And I talked to you last year about this, and people were professing concern. And then I heard that there was concern, but it just never seems to appear on the agenda. And one thing that surprised me when I talked to the police last year about this was to learn that there's a policy against stopping noisy cars. So I was really shocked by this, and I asked for the reason, and the reason was they don't pose any risk to public health and safety, which is obviously not true. There's tons of studies showing that interrupted sleep and that excessive noise is bad for a person's health. And also the way that they speed up and weave around in traffic is nerve-wracking. So then I thought, well, maybe I'm the only thinking this because I'm old. So I asked my students, and many of them told me, oh, we hate it too, especially the women, because just today I was in the CVS parking lot, which is enclosed, and there was an ear-shattering car in there. And apparently there's this ability to like ramp up the noise or diminish the noise if you would like to. And I guess the person felt like ramping up the noise at me. And it's not the first time that it's happened that I've been driving excessively slowly, I guess, and someone has ramped up noise behind me to a volume that makes me feel like I'm going to have a seizure. So I would like the council to address this. It's a frequent topic of conversation, at least among my ancient friends. And if it's needed that there be some more citizens coming forward, I can certainly provide that. Thank you.
Thanks for your input. Mr. Haydir?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ali Haider. I'm the owner of 7-Eleven at 311 Grove Street. I have two locations, one in the downtown and one on the Grand River. So I'm here for the design plan for the Albert at Francisco, and I want to communicate. Maybe you have some questions about that too, so I'm here. The first thing is that like our logistic has been suffering since 2017. We have semi trucks that bring the deliveries in. The site does around $3 million in sales a year. And during that time when we closed that intersection, the semi truck, they cannot make it to the parking lot because if they're there, they cannot reverse or make a U-turn. So I will request to keep the intersection open. Not only us, we have several other businesses that also get their deliveries and they're not able to come into that area, and there's different kind of logistic challenges with that. The second thing is about my business. I'm the only business with in and out parking in East Lansing. And I want to keep it like that because my customer can drive it to that and then they can be in and out. Lately, it's been an Uber parking and DoorDash parking and all kind of parking. And when you call someone to ticket and tow, that procedure takes like 2-3 hours. So I think like if that area is open, the citizen can utilize that more. The third one is the loss of revenue, and it's actually average around $1,000 per day. I have documentation that I can provide, around 300 less customers a day because 60% of my customer base is based like they drive it. And it's been 7 years that I have taken my turn. So I would request to either open the intersection, or I think it should be fair if we rotated block-wise, that this block had it for that many years, or and someone else. The second thing, without being a business owner, as a father, I have two kids. One is a 16-year-old, and he wants to come to Paintball Pete in the nighttime. And lately, that area actually a safety concern for me. And that's not from a business owner point of view. This is more from like a family man and a father looking out for that. So there has been a shooting there. There were 32 shots were fired because the girl, according to my knowledge, who was coming out of the bar, she couldn't get an Uber right outside from the bar, and she had to walk in search of Uber. During the walk, some people approached her and told her to, let's go with us. And she said no. She ran towards next to Hopcat in the place, I think Fieldhouse or something, and that's where the shooting started. She got shot at ankle, and if she had a chance to get an Uber right outside of the bar, she wouldn't be walking in there. That place is very peaceful in the daytime, but when it's come to the nighttime, and the alcohol and intoxication and all these things happen there, and then we have people carrying guns in there, and we have large crowd, and anyone with an like assault rifle or something like that, that can done a lot of damage. I heard shots, 32, I was there. Then there was a stabbing happen in the parking lot, I was also there. Then we have a shooting across the street in the parking lot, I was also there. And hopefully this coming year, we should have a better plan of safety, because right now, any incident can take all the businesses out.
Thank you for coming. Okay, anybody in the queue?
There are no callers in the queue.
Okay, we'll move on to communications from mayor and council members. Ms. Singh?
Yes, just two brief community announcements. Looking towards next week, we have Bircham Hills, their 50th anniversary party on Thursday, the 25th, as well as the Crystal Awards. So Crystal Awards is open to the public and really encourage interested community members to come out, socialize, and pay respect to this year's honoree. That's it.
Thank you. Dr. Altman?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to, one of the speakers stole my thunder, as it were. This concerns the loud cars. This is a concern that I've heard a lot about from a lot of people. It's something that concerns me as well. And so I'm going to choose to amplify the issue, as it were. I don't understand why loud exhaust is a secondary violation rather than the primary violation under our police policy. Loud cars are a quality of life issue, but they are more than that. They are a public health issue. They wake people up, they rattle people, they amplify anxiety disorders. They are bad for your hearing if you're right beside them, which happens in the downtown. And we're not talking about old cars with rusty mufflers. We're talking about expensive cars that people have intentionally modified to make them louder, possibly in violation of state law. Other jurisdictions, in Michigan and around the country have started to address this issue, and I think have had some success. And we should also, if we need an ordinance change, then we should look at that. If we need sound meters for police or pace, then let's get sound meters. If we need to go find somebody who will prosecute these offenses, then we need to find somebody who will prosecute these offenses. It may take some time to make progress on this issue because there may be several steps we have to take, but I'd like to see us start taking some concrete steps. I think people have had enough, and I think it's time. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Meadows?
I'm just going to piggyback on that. I'll just note that, we spent a considerable amount of time years ago with regard to noise complaints within the community, and noise is an issue in the neighborhoods, and it's one that we've addressed in the past. This is something that, like Eric just mentioned, we heard at the doors like on a consistent basis during the campaign last fall. People were complaining about speeding in the neighborhoods and about noise in the neighborhoods from vehicles passing through the neighborhoods. So I think we need to re-examine our policy a little bit, that it would be a secondary violation perhaps, until 10 o'clock at night or something like that might be something that we could take a look at, but we certainly should be writing tickets with regard to this. Those generally are get your muffler fixed, bring the proof to the court, and we're letting you off the hook anyway. So let's take a look at that again and see where we should be.
Okay, city manager?
I have no comments tonight.
City attorney?
Just briefly, the noise issue is a violation under the state motor vehicle code at 257-707C, and then we do also have a noise violation ordinance that does set forth that it's a civil infraction during the day, but then turns into a misdemeanor from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., as Councilperson Meadows referenced. And so I will take a look at that, and I will work with the prosecutor to ensure that it can be written by our officers as drafted, and if we need to make amendments, certainly we'll look at that.
Okay. Consent agenda. Do we have a motion on the consent? Well, let's read the consent agenda first. I always get that.
Eventually. I was okay for just the motion, but on tonight's consent agenda, 3.1 is approve the following appointments or reappointments to the board and commissioners. First one is reappoint Bryan Norrix to the Income Tax Board of Review for a full term ending June 30th, 2026. And then from earlier, the amendment, item number 2 is to appoint Logan Byrne to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a full term ending December 31st, 2026, and to appoint Alexis Murray to the Historic District Commission for a full term ending December 31st, 2026. 3.2 is approve a resolution to adopt a final project plan for the water resource recovery facility and collection system improvements and designating an authorized project representative. 3.3 is approve a resolution to establish a public hearing on the preliminary fiscal year 2025 budget and property tax rate for the May 14th, 2024 meeting. 3.4 is set a public hearing for the May 14th, 2024 to consider the fiscal year 2025 Community Development Block Grant Budget. 3.5 is approve a resolution recognizing May 5th through May 11th, 2024 as Public Service Recognition Week. And 3.6 is approve revocation of Policy Resolution 2021-18, Policies for Mobile Food Vending Unit License Program under Section 8-1510 of the City Code.
Could we have a motion?
I move to adopt the consent agenda as read by our city manager.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Singh, seconded by Altman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. We now move on to Section 4, Item 4.1, a public hearing to consider a request to construct a single-story, multi-tenant retail building with drive-through window and parking lot at 210, 218, and 224 West Lake Lansing Road. Do we have a staff presentation on this before we open the public hearing?
Thank you. We have a brief staff presentation. Just pull this up real quick. So this item is, as you mentioned, a request to construct a single-story multi-tenant retail building with drive-through, and I should mention 42 spaces parking lots, or 42 space parking lot, Lake Lansing, on the north side of Lake Lansing, just west of Abbott. This is approximately just over an acre in size, and the applicant is proposing to remove everything on the property. There's currently some residential structures, paving, fencing, and a significant number of trees. And the applicant's proposing to remove all those and, in its place, construct this proposed building. This is a special land use because of the parking lot, or excuse me, because of the drive-through. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at a public hearing on January 10th, and then reviewed again on January 24th, at which time the Planning Commission recommended approval by Council 7-0. At the public hearing on January 10th, there were no comments either in support or opposition, but there were some comments in opposition at the January 24th meeting, specifically about the removal of trees and, like a gentleman earlier said, the introduction of a drive-through in an area where we may want to consider other sorts of uses. So a traffic study was being ordered and has been completed now. The traffic study has found that this proposed, the proposal would not significantly impact the operations of the surrounding network. So it concludes no further off-site improvements are required to mitigate any adverse operational impacts of the project. So the traffic study is complete and in your packet, and that is the request before you today. Can I answer any questions about
Any questions?
anything on the site?
I do have a question.
Yes.
It looked like there were two traffic studies, one that said this is a problem, and then a subsequent one that said it wasn't. So what was the consideration by the Planning Commission with regard to that?
The Planning Commission, believe in their discussions, they knew a traffic study was pending, a new traffic study, I guess more current, and that was, they deferred to that.
So, being more current, meaning like not
It's-
2 months old, just brand new, or, I mean, what was the difference in time that we were talking about there?
It's not immediately coming to me. The current traffic study has just been completed under current traffic conditions. So that's less than a month old. I can try to find out the age of the old one. If you'd like, it'll just take me a moment.
And if you recall, do you know the rationale of the original traffic study that indicated that it would be a problem to have this drive-through here?
I don't. No, I don't. I can look that up. But we deferred essentially to the more current study, which found that it would have no, essentially, any potential adverse impacts could be mitigated.
Okay, and can you tell me the stacking, the number of cars that can be stacked for the drive-through?
Yeah, I believe there are 11 spaces in the stacking lane, which meets the requirements of the ordinance.
Any other questions?
Just one more. Condition number 8 was kind of perplexing to me. No cars can be stored on or junk cars can be hidden, I guess, on the property. Was there some suggestion that that was going to take place?
No. There has been discussion in similar recent requests at the Planning Commission and Council level with concerns about that sort of activity happening, and so I included that, I guess, presupposing that that condition might come up again.
Got it. That's it for me.
Any other questions? I do have a couple questions. So the sole basis upon which this is subject to a special use permit analysis is the drive-in window?
That's correct.
Okay. And have you had the opportunity, since you've been here, to do an inventory of how many drive-in windows have been approved in the city of East Lansing?
I've not.
Okay. We do have the materials that would indicate that, correct?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
we do.
Okay, any other questions for staff? All right, I will open the public hearing to consider a request to construct a single-story, multi-tenant retail building with drive-through window and parking lot at 210, 218, and 224 West Lake Lansing Road. Is there anybody that wishes to address the council in this public hearing? Anybody at all? Okay, I see nobody. I close the public hearing. Does council have a preference as to how it wants to proceed?
Is the applicant here?
Yes. Yes, there's a representative.
Do they want to make a presentation?
Apparently not. I thought I'd just ask if they wanted to, but. Well, do we have questions for them? Okay, well, why don't you come up? So I'm going to declare the closing of the public hearing nunc pro tunc, which only Mr. Meadows and I know what it means. So we're, in effect, reopening the public hearing to hear from the applicant. Go ahead, sir.
My name is David Christian with DC Engineering. I'm the engineer on the project here, and I'm just here to answer any technical questions you may have.
Okay, so the obvious question that Mr. Meadows asked is, what's the timing of the first traffic study, and what's the timing of the second traffic study?
I'm not aware of the first traffic study. During the design process, I did a quick analysis on the traffic volumes there, and it hit the threshold that would require a traffic study to be done. That was Landon's and my first conversation about it. And then we hired the firm of Fishbeck to come in and do a formal traffic study. They went out and they took actual vehicle counts, prepared a complete traffic study. But if there was a previous traffic study, I'm sorry, I'm just not aware of it.
Okay,
So-
and do we have any idea what kind of restaurant this is going to be?
No. Hi, my name is Ilias.
Hi.
No, we currently don't have any tenants, so.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? Dr. Altman?
There's a lot of commercial space that's open up there. Are you aware of that?
So we're really familiar with that area. Currently, there's no commercial space available in that area. It's all taken.
There are for rent signs along Lake Lansing all the way over to Harrison,
We got.
either for rent or for sale.
Hi, I'm Amy Richter Perkins with Colliers. I'm the agent representing them. There is space available along Lake Lansing, but it's office space, not retail space. There's no retail vacancy along that corridor. So they own a retail store, they'd be one of the tenants, and we'll have 3 additional spaces in the building.
Okay, any other questions?
I have one more question for the engineer. You're going to clear the site, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I close the public hearing to consider a request to construct a single-story, multi-tenant retail building with drive-through window and parking lot at 210, 218, and 224 West Lake Lansing Road. I'm just going to say this. I'm not prepared to move ahead on this tonight. If council wants to move ahead, that's fine, but I have a number of questions I don't think have been answered. And the reality is, from my experience on the Planning Commission, and frankly with my experience representing potential tenants as well as on the Trowbridge Road property that's morphed into a couple other things, my recollection, and I think my previous council members can support me on this, there are not a lot of drive-in windows approved in East Lansing. So I'd like to have some idea of where those have been approved so that we can take a look at that in the context of the special use permit analysis. So, but that's just me talking, so.
Well, I'll make a motion to, do you want to make a motion to defer on this or to table it until we bring it back off the table?
Whatever you want. I think given the budget stuff, it might make more sense to defer it, to table it until we have the answers back.
Well, let me suggest this. We've already deferred something to, I think, the first week in June, and that's beyond our budget process. I'll make a motion to defer to that first business meeting in June. And then if there's a second, I'll explain my reasons.
I'll second it.
Well, I agree with the mayor on this. For one thing, I'm concerned about the drive-through on what I consider to be one of our busiest streets. I think it's a very difficult in and out, and that certain changes that have taken place in that area, especially as it would as people would travel by this particular location, would make it difficult to get out back onto the street, which means that the stacking of 11 may be not sufficient. But also, I think I don't have a particular problem with the idea of a small strip mall, which is what this is, in that particular location, because it's backed up to an apartment complex, which this could service, depending on who the tenants might be in there. But I really don't see the need for a drive-through at all at that particular location. I think it's a problem, and I'm willing to take a look at it as we go forward and get these questions answered, but I want to know more about that transportation study as well. So I'll be supporting the idea of deferring this to the first business meeting in June.
Okay, any other comments? Motion's been made and seconded to defer it to the first regular meeting in June. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. We will see you in June. Okay, business agenda 5.1. Consideration of approval of the revised site plan and closure of 2 lanes on Albert Avenue between MAC Avenue and Grove Street, beginning no sooner than April 29th, 2024, and ending no later than 5 p.m. on August 12th, 2024, for Albert Al Fresco.
Good evening.
Lady and gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yes, so as a follow-up to the discussion last week, staff went back, gathered some information, provided the detail in the updated agenda item report of all the questions we thought were asked to cover that, to answer those questions. We also looked at an option of including Ann Street Plaza as part of Albert Al Fresco, which would allow us, if the smaller footprint is approved would allow us that Grove intersection to be replaced to be used on Ann Street Plaza. That was reviewed by Public Works, Police, and Fire, and that arrangement was approved by all of them. The way that would work is Thursday evenings are our busiest evenings. That's when we have music and games. So our thought is that we would, utilize Ann Street Plaza, have the stage, have the music, or whatever activity take place on the stage, and they'd be able to have the games and our set up tables at that location. So that was in your packet as a supplement that could be added on to that smaller footprint. It's just a couple, I think it's 2,800 square feet versus 3,000 square feet. So it fits, right into the plaza, so we're able to utilize that. What we would do is we would coordinate with Public Works. They would close the alley, the Grove Alley at 2:45 on Thursday afternoons, and reopen it by 5:45 a.m. Friday mornings, so deliveries and that would still be able to continue down that alley of Grove. So we're here to answer any questions,
Okay, questions from council. Dr. Altman.
I have a question about that.
yes.
Why couldn't we just reopen it Sunday? And so then you'd have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday worth of space.
So we would want to confirm with the businesses that it would be a longer time frame. When we initially came up, this was a quick turnaround, and we talked to the one business. They were fine with that, but they said 1 day, correct? And I said yes. So if that is something that we would want, I would want to include everybody on Ann Street Plaza, those businesses that face there. And then there's a business that faces off Albert right there that is impacted by this also. So, I would want to give my word and go back to them and get that information from them of how that would impact them.
For that all to happen, would we need to amend the motion that I think is in front of us
Correct.
to authorize that?
Correct. You would include that closure on Thursdays.
I've been looking at a lot of different,
I know.
so apologize, and you just described,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you need any water too. I'm hearing your
I
voice.
have a cold, so
Okay.
I'm good.
I'm sorry.
It's just,
I
I've been
get you.
talking a lot. So.
I don't know why, all that community.
So do you want me to
engagement.
walk you through how
If
this
you
would?
could,
Yeah.
please,
So-
spoon feed me, please.
So this would remain as it is. And then, Marie, can you go to the two more, see? So see where that red line is right there?
Yes.
So the barricades would be set up as an angle there. And then you see where that green X is?
Yes.
There would be a gate system there, and
Oh.
then there would be a vehicle that would be parked at the back where that green square is. And so nobody could come through the alley there. It would be parked just past that back, behind those buildings where like Spartan Spirits and LS is, because they have private parking there.
Oh,
So
okay.
they would be able to pull in and leave as normal. You just wouldn't be able to go southbound past that point. And so Public Works would drop off that vehicle at 2:45 on Thursday, and then the downtown crew comes in early, and so they would remove it by 5:45 a.m. And so there are deliveries that come through, of course, servicing those businesses in that area.
You referenced this would reference about 2,800 square feet
It's in let me go into
versus 3,000
Yeah,
of the
so
original.
right now we have, so right now, Ann Street Plaza is about 2,820, give or take. And then for comparison, the Albert Avenue and Grove Street is approximately 3,050 for the space.
Say that one more time.
So 2,820,
Uh-huh.
3,050.
Well,
Yeah.
the 3,000 footprint is what closure?
Albert and Grove, so that
Albert and
intersection.
Grove. Okay,
right.
gotcha.
So
Adding,
that's where
gotcha,
the
okay.
music and the events used to take place in
Yeah.
in prior years.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I have sort of, one, I was told that the owner of Pinball Pete's had objected to our closing of the sort of pass-through that's behind his building. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and that has influenced this design?
So what we went back and came up with another solution. We thought we're trying to appease everyone. And so what we did is we went back to this design And I reached out to them and another tenant in that building and talked to them about, what about Thursday evenings? And they said that would work.
Okay,
Thursday
but
evenings.
they are not willing to have, say, a seasonal
Right.
closure of that particular location, even though there's bollards at the alley, so it's just a parking space, right?
Right, so what happens there is, I'll give you some backstory to it. So this year, one of their other arcades are closing. And so when I spoke to him, they're having a lot of equipment hauled back up here. And so of all the times for them to be restricted, to be able to have deliveries take place there, this would not be the ideal time. I think if it was a different time and they weren't going through that, there might be a different conversation we could have.
Okay, then my next question is, why not just close that south lane then? I mean, leave that south lane open and close it all the way to MAC in the north lane so that we can have this open all the way down to Mac and without having to remove on Thursday morning or Friday morning.
I would have to defer that to Public Works because they would have to take a look and see what the barricades that we have. We're limited on our barricades also. And so I would have to defer to them to see if that is an option, if we could do that. And then,
Okay.
of course, I would need to get police and fire's approval on that also.
And then a question I would have is, so the Hopcat received its deliveries on, I assume, Grove Street, right?
Right. Typically, all the deliveries are supposed to take place in the alley. Yes.
And the Fieldhouse combo there, where do they receive their deliveries?
All deliveries are supposed to take place off Grove. I couldn't speak exactly where they are. I do know walking that alley, coming through the downtown, most throughout the day, you're going to go past a delivery truck parked right there in the alley.
But what about weekends?
I wouldn't be able to speak to their weekend schedules.
All right, because if the deliveries were limited to during the week, we wouldn't have to remove on Friday morning because we would have that whole weekend, at least, for the Ann Street Plaza to be added to the. I'm just concerned that I believe that we need to take into account the needs of the businesses that are down there, obviously. But this is designed to actually benefit them. So, and I applaud you for including the Ann Street Plaza in the expansion here because, we built a stage there for a reason. And we used to have, Friday and Saturday night music there, and we need to get back to that. So, thanks for answering my questions on this.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
So I have a question about where we are procedurally. So last meeting, I made a motion to adopt what is now version 1 in the agenda packet, which includes the Grove and Albert intersection. And then we moved to defer. So is that motion before us now?
Did the motion receive a second?
It had.
Okay.
And then we
Mr. Chubb,
moved-
do you have a ruling for me on that?
Because at that time, or since that time, we obviously adjourned the meeting, and this is a new meeting, I think we should redo whatever that motion was. I don't think it'd be properly pending.
Okay. So I have a motion then. And this is almost certainly not going to be the last word on this matter, but I want to indicate where I stand on this.
Hang on just a second.
Can I ask one more question of
Yeah.
staff before you roll in? Recognizing what you just mentioned in terms of where conversations are today with business owners on this footprint and what Mr. Meadows threw out in terms of maybe a potential option or recognizing there's some moving happening with one of the businesses as well. Do you think there's a potential we could adapt to a different or open additional space later in the summer on the alley piece per discussion with, the appropriate business owners?
Yeah, I mean, we could go back out and, if there's
Which I know you want to hear.
So, for us at this point, we're under a timeline.
Yeah.
And we would like to be able to kick off on April 29th, whatever version is adopted tonight. In saying that, it doesn't mean that once it's in place, we as staff.
We couldn't
We
tweak.
couldn't tweak it. We could, I can't tweak it on the spot here.
Sure.
But what I can do is take your comments back, reconvene the group, meet with the business owners, get their feedback, find out delivery schedules, see what we could make work, and then come back and make those additions, later on in the season. And by later on, I mean, in May.
Okay.
Your motion?
Yes. So I'm going to move to adopt the footprint from last summer as specified in the February 21st, 2023 agenda as item number 4.3, as well as the Fountain Square site plan, the elevated plaza site plan, and the Bailey parking lot site plan.
Can you describe that a little bit better? 'Cause I don't know what that one.
First of all, do we have the depiction you're talking about in our materials for tonight?
No, we don't, and that's why I indicated the agenda item and the date of the meeting, which I realize that it's going to not be real easy to get at, but it's basically the full footprint that was in place last summer.
Do you guys have that by any chance?
I'm sure we can bring it up.
Pulling it up now.
Yeah. It was
Let's just see if we can- let's
just
see if we can get it up there.
2023.
Heather, that was the link that you sent me.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep.
Go ahead, please.
I just want to comment that if the full footprint is approved, we don't have the infrastructure to put in the other spots. The reason why we're able to spread out Albert al fresco is because we won't be using all of the infrastructure in that location, and we're able to spread in those other areas. I just want to clarify that. Can you send it to Ray too? Yeah.
Dr. Allman, did I interrupt you, but did you, I think I get the sense of your motion. I just wanted to have something in front of us we could look at.
Yeah.
Did you make your motion?
I
Is
did
that
make
your
my motion.
Pardon?
That was my motion.
Okay. So is there a second to the motion?
I'm going to give him a second.
Okay. So moved by Altman, seconded by Singh, that, I'm going to paraphrase here, that we utilize the same footprint as last year's whatever we're calling this, Albert al fresco, and add into it the plaza section and what else?
The Fountain Square site plan, the elevated plaza site plan, and the Bailey parking lot site plan. I understand that if we do the full footprint, we can't do the others, but that doesn't mean we can't approve them as part of this.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Go ahead.
So I'll address my motion. So the two issues in my mind are the drop-off point for Newman Lofts and the 7-Eleven access. There are alternative drop-off points for residents of Newman Lofts. They have access in the garage to the elevators to the building. I fully recognize that a drop-off beside an elevator in the garage is not as convenient as a drop-off in front of the building at street level. But I want to emphasize that we're talking about competing interests here. And there are hundreds of people who have been very enthusiastic about Albert al fresco in the site plan, in the form that it took last summer. So we're trying to strike a balance. And a similar argument applies to access to the 7-Eleven, in my view. The owner certainly has a right to access his property, but he doesn't have a right to two access points. It sounds like a lot of business to that establishment comes from people driving there. This is a downtown. Downtowns should be for walking. They should be walkable. Malls in the suburbs are for driving to. And so maybe this is not the right fit for this business. I'm getting mixed messages about the state of security in the downtown. We've heard from police, I think, that things are sort of under control. but we heard testimony to the contrary from Mr. Hyder earlier. So I'm not sure where we're at, but I think that issue is independent of al fresco. It's something we're going to have to deal with one way or another. So I guess the bottom line is there are these competing interests, and these are our streets. These are the community streets, and we found something that a lot of people like in the downtown, and they have told us this repeatedly. They've told us this in surveys. They've told us this when we were campaigning last fall. We found a use for these streets that lots of people enjoy, and I think it's important to represent the interests of the community, and that's the basis of my motion.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
I also wanted to reference a couple of things. First and foremost, my second to Councilman Altman's motion is because I think this is an important discussion that in terms of where we want to take the community and providing more walkable areas. And as many know, part of my day job is about touting Michigan to be attractive to young professionals to want to live and move here. And that takes developing a sense of place. There's a number of concerning things that I want to talk about. And I know, staff, I know how much time you put on this, and I know how much public engagement over the last year with our business community, which I think is so, so important. Just as Councilman Altman referenced resident input too, that has talked about the success of Albert al fresco. Now, I think a couple of things. One is my understanding, as I've also had independent conversations with some business owners, that the original vision for this was to move around to different places of the city, to not impact a set of businesses repetitively. You know what I'm saying, repeat, if I could say use my words. And that being important to rotate. I don't know if that's viable or if that has been looked at since this original concept a number of years ago now. But I do want to reference that as some of the comments. I am deeply troubled. Councilman Altman mentioned the mixed messages we're getting about public safety downtown. And some that was shared during public comment. That there are a number of solutions outside of, we've added a camera, but there's other solutions that I know communities like Ann Arbor have approached as well. And that is my question to our, not only law enforcement, but I think other community groups that are working on some of those issues. And I think that we need to approach those to ensure our community and downtown safe, regardless of the outcome tonight. So I want to make sure that that is taken home by our city manager. I also want to reference engagement too by the University Student Commission, who they reference all the fun things happen when we're not here. And this idea of how do we expand it, and accommodate through a timeline or calendar that again, we can take into consideration our businesses. This last fall, the last thing I'll say on this is, this is not a new topic for me. We talked about it on the campaign trail. I'm on the record talking about supporting Albert al fresco and just what an important community amenity it is for us. So I look at this vote as something that I hope, regardless of the outcome tonight on this footprint, that we can look forward to another round of planning, looking back at maybe that original vision and almost reimagining what could be really important to both our neighborhood residents, but also our business community downtown that potentially could also be a fair shake at this. So those are some of the items I wanted to add to the discussion.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Mr. Mills.
I'll indicate that, I don't intend on voting for this motion. I will, if we get to it, vote for the last plan, the one that has been proposed to expand down to
the Ann Street Plaza, and to expand, as the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, into the Bailey Lot down in the 500 block, and to provide additional locations within the downtown area for this type of recreation and opportunity for people in our community to interact socially. I think it's an extremely important thing, and I'm very supportive of the idea of Albert Street al fresco. I don't think that it's wedded to a single type of footprint in the downtown area, but I hope that we continue this, even if we do move it around in the community, as was indicated, at some point in the future. But at this point in time, I believe that expanding across Grove Street doesn't really add anything to it. And certainly going back to the original site plan for this, as the motion indicates, I think is something that has been suggested to be changed for very good reason, in observing how it's used and when it was used in the past. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting this motion.
Well, I'm going to vote against it for a variety of reasons. First of all, I want to thank the staff for all the work on this. Many people whose opinions I respect, and let me just say this, I think I'll be voting against this, and then I think it's going to be amended to go to this smaller plan, and I just want to make it clear I'm going to vote against for that smaller plan for all these same reasons, with the exception of one reason, which I'll point out. Many people whose opinions I respect have reached out to support the continuing closure of Albert Avenue for some period of time during the spring-summer months. I truly respect their opinions and appreciate their advice. Nonetheless, I will respectfully be voting against this motion for the following reasons. First, when Albert Avenue was reconfigured as a result of the construction of the new high-rise dwellings and reconstruction of the city parking ramp, there was discussion about reconfiguring Albert Avenue so that it could become some sort of semi-permanent plaza for city events. My recollection is that reconfiguration never took place. Second, as part of that construction, we touted the availability of what is euphemistically called senior housing in downtown East Lansing. Unfortunately, the configuration of Albert Avenue, which resulted, never made appropriate allowance for the ease of seniors' ingress and egress into their building. Both before and after my time on council, I have seen no plan for Albert al fresco which truly solved this problem. Moreover, I have yet to see a totally workable solution to this problem when Albert Avenue is not closed. Third, I view the closure of Albert Avenue as a child of the pandemic. It was created and maintained to assist all of the downtown at a time period when public gatherings were severely limited for health reasons. And all you have to do is look at the governor's proclamations in the year 2020 to see what kinds of restraints there were put on businesses and public gatherings, which incidentally I think she removed by June of 2020. In any event, those original reasons for the closure are no longer in effect. Fourth, to my knowledge, the city has never calculated the actual cost of the closure to the city in terms of government expenditures, nor do we have any reliable figures on the financial gains and losses to businesses and the city. Absent such calculation and quantification, it seems difficult to justify the continuation of what was once a temporary solution to a temporary societal problem. Fifth, it is no secret that our law enforcement services are under strain because of lack of personnel. There is no doubt in my mind that especially after a certain time in the evening, the closure of Albert Avenue becomes an attractive nuisance for those who do not bring families downtown to the downtown and don't intend to. And moreover, because it's on my frequent walking routes, I suspect that our maintenance employees of the city do not have a pleasant time cleaning up on the mornings, especially the weekend mornings. Sixth, many people talk about the need for, quote, placemaking, end quote. Obviously, in the last few years, that has become a conventional wisdom of what is required in some downtowns. I respectfully suggest that if we are serious about, quote, placemaking, end quote, There are other locations contiguous to downtown East Lansing which could be set aside for social gatherings and recreation similar to what occurs during the daylight hours at Albert al fresco. And in fact, that's happened historically. Seventh, the Downtown Development Association Board, with my abstention, voted for the scaled-down plan for the summer. To the extent we should have any Albert al fresco, it should be that approved by the DDA. Eighth, in my way of thinking, it is unfair for city government to be involved in picking winners and losers among merchants. Absent any accurate data, it appears to me that we engage in such an exercise when we enhance the streetscape for some merchants in a limited area while penalizing the operations of others in the same area, and at the same time fail to similarly enhance the operations of other merchants spread throughout the downtown. So why don't we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Altman?
Yes.
Councilmember Meadows?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Singh?
Yes.
Mayor Brookover?
No. Okay, do we have another motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adopt with the understanding that this is a flexible adoption of the description that is in our packet titled Ann Street Plaza Thursday Evening Closure, as well as the additional locations that have been identified previously in the downtown area with the, in those locations. And as I said, with the flexible understanding that this may be expanded and it would be brought back to us for some additional changes.
Is there a second? Second by Singh. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
I just add that the additional locations were Fountain Square site plan, Elevated Plaza site plan, Bailey parking lot site plan.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Nay. Motion passes 3-1. Okay, item 5.2. Thanks.
Thank you.
Staff, for all your time and effort on this. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
5.2, second reading and consideration of approval for ordinance 1534, amendments to regulatory requirements and administrative procedures for operating mobile food vending units in the city of East Lansing. You're up
Hi.
again.
Yep. Hi again, Council. On April 5th, 2022, East Lansing City Council approved Ordinance 1510 and then Policy Resolution 2021-18, which significantly expanded the regulatory requirements and administrative procedures for mobile food vending units in the city of East Lansing. Since that time, Community and Economic Development staff have been administering the mobile food vending annual license, as well as the special event food vending permit that were created by this ordinance and policy resolution, and have seen some areas for improvement. We spoke with the city attorney about it, and the city attorney recommended that we merge them into one omnibus ordinance for consistency purposes to make sure we don't have two documents that might not be matching in some points. Happy to answer any questions you may have or defer them to the city attorney.
Do we have questions?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm going to get to it. I was just unclear. It looks like it's the yellow highlights that are the removals, not the red highlights, right?
Yes, the non-highlighted track changes are those that are directly from the existing policy resolution 2021-18 that are moving into the ordinance, whereas the highlighted changes are new amendments.
Okay, then, and maybe I missed it and it's just been relocated, but why would we remove the bond and fees required section?
So we have always had a requirement, depending upon the language or the type of mobile food vending that they do, for a substantial amount of insurance coverage by way of a CGL policy at either a $500,000 level or $1 million level. What we additionally had was a cash deposit that they also had to make with the city, which required the finance department to hold $500 for each one of them throughout the season. And when we talked about how it administratively constitute an administrative burden without providing a substantial enough amount that if there was to be something serious, we wouldn't just go against the policy. And in our review of everything, it didn't look like it was actually, the $500 was actually being used.
Okay.
And that's the one thing that I would note is this is your second reading. The first reading, we did have 300,000 for certain vendors. I then noted our policy resolution 2015-8, I believe, requires insurance not less than $500,000, which is another reason that I'm trying to move these more into not having a bunch of old policy resolutions out there that we're complying with, as well as the ordinance. So we're moving this one all to an ordinance, but I did note that we do have that other policy resolution regarding insurance levels, and so we'll deal with that as well at a later date.
Yeah, I'm good with all that, and thanks for the answer. That just struck me as something that we might want to take a look at. I'll just mention that, I've mentioned this to the city manager as well, that I kind of missed it because the first reading was on a consent agenda, and I think we need to always have the first and the second reading on a business agenda so that we have an opportunity to talk about these things in advance. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I need to go back, and there's a generational thing here. When you use this terminology about track and all that stuff, I got yellow and red here. So which is the one we're talking about tonight? The one with yellow or red?
Both.
Both. Okay, so if I'm looking at this and it's got yellow, does that mean that's the change that we're voting in?
So you're voting in, or considering voting in both changes. The ones that are not highlighted are, since we're merging an ordinance and policy resolution, the non-highlighted track changes are those that are directly copied from the policy resolution that we're getting rid of, that was actually revoked on your consent agenda. And then the ones that are highlighted are those that are new amendments to the program.
Highlighted means they're yellow?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a number of questions if I'm understanding this correctly. So I'm looking at the highlighted one, and I'm looking at section 8.132, conduct of business generally. 1A, mobile food vendors and transient food retail merchants must be licensed, comma, obtain a permit, comma, or otherwise receive authorization to operate within the city of East Lansing. How would they otherwise receive authorization? From the city manager under another section?
If you look at section 8-151, then that is 1.3 or 1C, sorry.
Slow down, I gotta flip some pages here.
No worries.
8153,
It's 18 in the PDF. And then it is 8151, required under Division 2 mobile food vending license. Under 1C, there is a provision that we are adding for individuals who want to have a mobile food vending unit at a private event where there will be no public sale of goods.
let me, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're talking about 8-151?
Yep.
Okay, and I'm seeing an A, a B, a C, a D.
Yep, it is C. And it's all highlighted or yellow.
Okay, tell me why, though, we wouldn't require a license for that. I mean, we require people to be licensed or permitted to sell magazines on your front door, or why wouldn't we require this to require a license?
This one doesn't talk about sale, it excludes sale. But my concern with that is, okay, so that's how you would otherwise be authorized. It would be a private event at which there was no sale, but you had a mobile food truck?
Yes, this came up several times over the past few years, which is why we wanted to ensure that we had an ability to inspect the vehicle for safety purposes.
And are all the insurance requirements still in effect for such a operation?
Yes, they are. And it was just our thought that some of the licensing levels for obtaining those permits for sale, for retail sale, like downtown, for example, are quite expensive. And if they were catering a private party, essentially, they are still licensed. Their safety licensing is from the county, so we know that their food safety is still up to date. We would then do the inspection to know that the vehicle itself was safe, and they wouldn't be required to incur those for a private catering event.
And what's a, quote, private event, end quote?
On private property where it's all guests that are not being charged for the food.
I've been to a baby shower where they had a food truck out in their driveway.
That's all fine, but I'm not seeing a definition of private event in this statute. Is it someplace else in our ordinances?
I mean, I think the reference is a private event where no food or beverages will be offered for sale to members of the public.
I understand that. What is a private event?
I think that is the definitional portion would just be limited to where there's no sale of food or beverages to members of the public.
So if a neighborhood association hires somebody with a mobile truck to come on to a park in the neighborhood, and they're not selling the food, then they're authorized to do that, and other than inspect the truck, we have no regulatory imprint on that?
We generally don't anyway, because the primary obligations that they have are the safety requirements which are done by the county health department.
Yeah, well, here's my primary concern about safety is that, with all due respect to people that operate food trucks, you get inspected once by the county, and then you set up a truck someplace, and at least the last variation on this, under the last council, I guess the interpretation I got is I could set up a food truck on my parking lot at my office and have it there for 6 months, and, either it would sell or not sell stuff, but I'm concerned about the public safety aspect of this with food and drink. And so that also then segues into the whole insurance thing. And Tony, I understand what you're saying about the 500 or 1,000, but, you're the governmental immunity expert, but I got some problems with the city, in effect, authorizing these entities without more regulatory protections for our citizens, which leads to another topic, which we don't have to get into tonight, which is I just don't quite understand where we're getting into this business. But so I have a lot of questions. It's all good. Mobile trucks are neat, but I won't be voting for this tonight if somebody makes a motion. I just think it takes too much work.
Hey, Tony.
Excuse me, one example is, for the life of me, I wouldn't understand in this day and age why we reduce the liability amount to $500,000. I mean, you and I both know you've been in enough situations where it just, if a mobile truck operator can't get a general liability policy that covers these risks for $1 million minimum, then my estimation, they shouldn't be in business, so. Go ahead, I'm sorry, Mark.
Don't be. Tony, if I hire a mobile food truck and have it sit in my driveway to work, to provide food and beverage to guests at my house, am I not a member of the public?
Well, to the extent that it's not for sale to the public and it's for guests at your home, then they.
But it was sold to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, the intent is just that they don't have to enter into the licensing, which is typically set out to be a retail provider within the city.
Well, I sort of share, I think, the concerns of the mayor with regard to this without a definition, because I think that if you're going to accept that particular situation, you can't just say it's sort of implied that you're not a member of the public once you've hired a food truck to provide food and beverages to your guests. So,
And while we're taking shots at it, let me just go to the operational compliance standards, and I guess this segues back to what I said about Albert Street the morning after. So we have a minimum of one trash receptacle must be provided, but more may be needed to adequately serve their operation. Yeah, true that. A minimum of one recycling receptacle must be provided by mobile food vendors that provide recycling containers and packaging to patrons. And then we go down on I, all exterior lighting associated with the mobile food vending unit, whether on the mobile food vending unit itself or placed on the site where the mobile food vending is occurring, shall be shielded to direct the illumination downward, except there's another section I was looking at yesterday which talks about that they have some right to have some degree of lighting on the truck itself. So if it's a successful operation, there's going to be trash. And if there's going to be trash, somebody from the city is going to end up picking up the trash. And we're going to have to pay them overtime because we don't have enough people working for the city to do this stuff at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, and none of the sections that you referenced have been modified in this version. There's always room for improvement on what we previously had, but none of those are proposed amendments that are being brought forth tonight.
And I appreciate that, and that's why I voted against it the last time. So. Okay, is there a motion? What do you want to do, folks?
I'm going to fill up that first business agenda in June. I'm just going to make a motion to defer this till the first business agenda in June. You've had comments from us. It looks like maybe we should have some further amendments to this, and I guess I'm concerned that we just I think repealed the existing ordinance, but I think we can handle that time frame and get this back to us at that point in time. So that's my motion anyway.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Meadows, seconded by Singh to defer to the first meeting in June. Any discussion?
Yeah, just one
Yes, sir.
Relatively minor comment. Section 8133 sub 7 needs a comma after soliciting.
Just 1 second, that's 8133.
Sub 7 needs a comma after soliciting.
We'll do it.
I guess I'm not as good a reader as I thought I was. Thanks for catching that one, Doctor. Anything else? So we have a motion to defer. We have a second. All those in favor of the motion to defer, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion to defer passes unanimously.
Simon, should we?
5.3, consideration of approval of a contract with Siegel, Inc. in the amount of $245,000 to conduct a comprehensive wage and job classification study and authorize the city manager to sign.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I apologize. So, one thing that we had on the consent agenda, and I will think about how we lay out the agenda next time in these circumstances, was the revocation of the policy resolution. I think that Mr. Meadows referenced that did implement these obligations. So for this time period until a modification is made successfully, I would like that to still be in place because that does set forth our insurance requirements and other operational obligations. And so I think what we could entertain is a motion to reconsider item 3.6, and then I would ask that it be rejected so that policy resolution 2021-18 stays in place.
And if we don't do that, your interpretation would be that we have no licensing process for mobile food trucks, and therefore they could not operate in the city until such time as we implement a new ordinance. Is that correct?
The ordinance allows them to operate. The policy resolution set forth the standards of operation. And so I think that needs to be in place.
I have a motion, Mayor.
Please.
I would like to move reconsideration of item 3.6, and I believe I'm entitled to do that because I voted on the prevailing side.
And the seconder was who?
Second.
Were you the seconder on the original, on the consent agenda? I think you were.
Or I moved the consent agenda.
Same and all.
You don't need the first and seconder, you just need people who voted for it.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that for the record. You moved the consent agenda?
I did.
And you, who seconded it? Do you remember?
I can't remember that far back.
Okay. So it's been moved, and do we have a second to this motion? Mark, you seconded it. Alderman moves for reconsideration. Meadows seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Now, Mr. City Attorney, do we need a motion?
I'll
To-
move, that was item what? 3 point,
Item 3.6, we move it in the affirmative.
I'll
and then vote
move
no.
to approve item 3.6.
I'll second.
Which we just reconsidered. I'll be voting against it, but
Oh, I see what you're doing, because the item approves revocation. So you're, so the council understands, if you want to reinstitute the policy, you have to vote against this motion. Does everybody get that? Okay, and there's a second? Did somebody second the motion?
I did.
Altman seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those against say nay. Nay. Motion fails.
okay.
So policy resolution 2021-18, policies for a mobile food vending unit license program under section 8-15110 of the city code is still in effect until further notice.
Thank you.
So back to, thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Back to the business agenda 5.3, consideration of approval of a contract with Siegel Inc. in the amount of $245,000 to conduct a comprehensive wage and job classification study and authorize the city manager to sign. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Council. I'm Emily Kenny, Director of Human Resources. Before you is a contract with Siegel Inc. for a comprehensive wage and job classification study. The last time that a wage and job classification study was done by the city was 1994. We received 4 responses to our RFP, ranging in cost from $33,600 to $245,000. The selection committee has unanimously recommended Siegel. In our opinion, of the 4 vendors who had responded, 2 of them were capable of performing a study at this size and scope that we were looking for. And out of those 2 vendors, Siegel is recommended based on the fact they are the only vendor with public Michigan clients who provided positive reviews. And they also have been recommended due to their approach to benefit analysis. Upon completion of the study, council will be presented with the findings in a confidential setting and can weigh in on the findings before they are implemented. The results of the study will last for 5 years and will affect all non-sworn personnel of the city. And then after that initial 5 years, smaller tweaks will be able to be made. We won't have to do such a large study this next time around to make up for the fact that it's been 30 years. So,
Any questions for staff? Yes, sir.
When you say that the study will last 5 years, that assumes minimal changes in the market.
yes,
Correct.
Siegel will provide us with an annual market adjustment for the findings, but then we will want to do another market analysis where we're surveying competitors and things after a 5-year period.
So that leads into my next question. There was a wide range of prices, right, bids, and you picked the most expensive, which I'm fine with because you get what you pay for. But could you just address briefly what was important about this bid that was lacking in the other bids?
Yes, definitely. So for this bid, one of the things that was important was their approach to benefit analysis. So in analyzing benefits of competitors and other organizations we've identified, they take it a step further to look at more up-and-coming benefits, not just your traditional benefits. They looked at more specific, down to what the deductibles are on our health insurance and things, and not just whether or not they offer health insurance. So that was one aspect. Another aspect was their communication plan. So they are very heavily involved in the communication, both internally to employees, since there's a great deal of employee participation required, and then also externally to the organizations that we're trying to solicit data from. They're a lot more heavily involved in that process rather than relying on the HR staff to do that. And thirdly, the biggest thing really was the fact that they had this experience in the public sector in Michigan. We are a unique labor market compared to other places in the country, so that's really what set them apart from the one that came in just underneath it.
So it sounds like they're actually going to do some of the work that otherwise you would be saddled with, or that city staff would be saddled with in terms of communication. So that's actually a good buy because we're understanding. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Wait, one other question.
Go ahead.
So the update, they're going to provide an update for 5 years?
Yeah, an update on a percentage for a
Annual.
market adjustment, yeah, across the board, not specific to the positions.
Yep, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's free?
Yes.
Okay. Motion?
Part of the bid.
Moved by Meadows to approve a contract with Siegel, Inc. in the amount of $245,000 to conduct a comprehensive wage and job classification study and authorize the city manager to sign. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Altman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Do we have a motion for a closed session? Dr. Altman? Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead,
Go ahead.
Dr. Altman.
I would move that we enter closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268 sub 1 sub C regarding strategy connected with the negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement.
Is there a second? Second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Altman,
Yes.
Councilmember Meadows.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Singh,
Yes.
and Mayor Brookover.
Yes. So for the benefit of the public, we'll be going into closed session. We'll be coming back briefly at some point. I suspect no further action will be taken tonight other than a motion to adjourn. So thanks for coming, everybody. Is there a second? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Altman?
Yes.
Altman, sorry. Councilmember Meadows? Mayor Pro Tem Singh?
Yes.
Mayor Brookover?
Yes. Do we have any further motions? The motion passes. We're in open session. Do we have any further motions?
Move to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Altman, seconded by Singh. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks, folks, for sticking
Thanks,
around.
everybody.